And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
World Conquerors is a game that I did a paid preview for before it came out on Kickstarter, and now it's out! Hurrah! And also an expansion, World Conquerors Revolutions. Well, now it's time for me to tell you what I really think about the game, take a look at the final produced product, and tell you if I think it's a game that you should pick up. Here we go. World Conquerors World Conquerors shows a map of the world, and at the beginning of your turn, you are going to start with, at the beginning of the game, you start with 6 tokens, which apparently I can't count. There we go, 6 tokens. And the first player who goes, there's a bonus marker here that's going to be moving on this track. This track is also where we keep empire marks to show your biggest empire for each of the players. But at the beginning of my turn, I'll look at where the bonus mark is. So right now it's at 4 for the first player's turn. So I'm going to get 4 more cubes. As after my turn, this mark is going to move down the line. So at the beginning of each succeeding turn, players are going to get more and more. If players run out of cubes, they can always take one of these. That means 5 cubes. And you'll likely need to do that on the 3rd and 4th turns. Now, what a player is going to do on their turn is they're going to try to conquer as much of the world as they can. Everyone's going to start with some cards, but after each player has taken their cubes, every player in the game, even it doesn't matter whose turn it is going to draw a card. Now these cards are going to show several leaders, famous leaders throughout history. And these leaders are used for a variety of things. You can use any of these cards anytime you want as an action card. For example, one opponent of your choice must immediately pay you 2 tokens. This naval attack supply cost is paid to you instead of the bank. Add 1 die to this attack. So you can always play a card from your hand as that. It's discarded. It's a one-time use. You can also play a card as a general, which means that if in the middle of some kind of battle on the board, I want to add a general to the territory that's mentioned on the card. For example, here, West Europe. I can play the card. I can put my general in West Europe. It doesn't matter who else is there, and that general will allow me to re-roll a die in battle in that area. And so cards can be played for that purpose. And then finally, and most importantly, a card can be played for the ruler on the card. And you'll do that at the beginning of your turn. You'll pick one of these guys, and you'll play that person in front of you. So let's say, for example, I play with Hannibal. Hannibal, the first thing I see here is North Africa. So I'm going to place my leader here in North Africa, and one of my cubes there. And now I'm going to try to conquer as much of the world as I can. Now the way that you conquer the world is you move to adjacent spots to conquer them, or you can even cross the sea to conquer another land. So let's say, for example, I decide I'm going to conquer the Middle East here. To do so, I roll 1 die, because I have 1 territory bordering the Middle East, and there's no one in there, so they roll a defensive die. We'll say the defensive die is black. As you can see here, they're tied, but so in that case, I lose. The defender wins ties. When you lose, you must pay the supply cost. Supply cost is 1, so I pay 1 cube, and the supply cost goes up to 2. So I try again. Again I lose. Now I have to pay 2 cubes, and the supply cost goes up. So you can see that losing has a pretty tough thing. I finally won now, 5-1, and so I can put a cube into that area. Now I'm going to attack East Europe. And I'm going to do the same thing. I've won again, so I put another cube there. Now I'll attack West Europe. I've lost, so I have to pay 3 cubes. At this point in time, I only have 1 cube left, and the supply cost is now 4. I can't pay the supply cost if I lose, so my turn is over. Another thing to note is that if you cross the sea to attack somebody, you must pay the supply cost before you attack. That's just one of the things about attacking the seas. So here I have 3. Again, I could have used my ruler to re-roll a die if I wanted to, and if I had added a general to the board, and other things too. So then I look at Hannibal's card. Hannibal has a special ability, which says, place your ruler pawn on any territory when you bring Hannibal into play as your ruler. So I could have started him anywhere. Every ruler has their own special ability. Charlemagne, each opponent must immediately pay you 1 token at the end of their turn. Elizabeth, all opponents' naval attack supply costs are paid to you. Adolf Hitler, add 1 to all your attacks, including your opponent's attacks, as long as the supply cost is less than 3. And so everybody has a different special ability that you can use, but they also have a victory condition here at the end. Hannibal's victory condition is at least 1 victory in Europe. That means he's had at least 1 victory in Europe this turn. And I did. I conquered East Europe. So because I did that, at the end of my turn, I get tokens equal to the current bonus mark. Well, that's great, because now I have 5 tokens, and at the beginning of my next turn, depending on how many players are in the game, I'm going to get another pile of tokens, and I'll be able to make more attacks. So this doesn't matter for winning the game, but it can give you more bonus tokens as the game progresses. Now, at the end of my turn, you can see I have 1, 2, 3 territories, so I place my red marker here. I have 3 territories. Maybe on the second turn, I get 9 territories. Maybe on the next turn I get 13, and then on the last turn I get 10. I don't move it backward though. 13 would be my highest, and that would be my score. Whoever conquers the world first wins. Or, at the end of 4 turns over here, whoever has the highest empire mark here is the winner. Now when you put out a new person, sometimes a new ruler will come out in a spot where the enemy armies are. Those enemy armies are removed. But at that point, wherever the bonus mark is, whoever's armies you remove gets that many tokens. But it is one way to get them out. Because as the game progresses, if I'm attacking Central Asia here, with my army, let's say I'm coming in and I'm attacking Central Asia is going to roll 4 dice on defense because there are 3 countries that are defending them. So sometimes bringing a ruler up in the middle of someone's territory is a way to displace them. And that is how you play the game. Most of the cards that are included with the game are great leaders, whether for good or for evil. I mean, powerful leaders, as you can see Bismarck. There's even a card that's an heir that lets you play the same card twice. Solomon, Cao, Genghis Khan, Thomas Jefferson, Sargon, Alexander, Akbar. There's different people. In the expansion here, revolutionaries, we do not have people who were necessarily powerful leaders, but people whose ideas changed the world. Joan of Arc, Muhammad, Karl Marx, Robert E. Lee, Martin Luther King Jr., Fidel Castro, Samuel Adams, Mandela, Malcolm X, Martin Luther, Jesus. And these people function basically identical to leaders, although they have different special abilities and different victory conditions. Like, for example, Karl Marx, if you own no more than double the tokens of any other player. So, there's different special abilities. Some of these people, though, have an H in front of them. And these people here can only be brought up in, that H means they're hosted. And that means they can only come out if someone else is in their area. So I guess in a sense they're kind of like a revolutionary. You can't just start in an empty spot on the board. There has to be an opponent's player already there. So you can see Robert E. Lee, therefore, would start the Civil War. And there's not all of them. Martin Luther, again, started in an area where the Catholic Church held sway and had his Reformation against it. So there's different things like that. And he then has to, for example, eliminate the host from the map. So the person who Martin Luther King started in, Martin Luther started in, he then has to destroy all the territories of that opponent to get his victory bonus. So this is not a very complicated expansion at all, really. You just take the cards out, throw them in the deck. It's pretty easy to add them in. I've always enjoyed guerrilla games for the unusual ideas that they have, for things that they add to a game, and World Conquerors is that. In essence, it's Risk. It's put down into a smaller package. But at the same time, you can say, oh man, I'm falling behind, but you're never really behind in this game. You could effectively come in and win on the final turn having nobody on the board. Now, it helps if you've set up for that previous turns to get the bonus armies, and that's what matters in this game, is using your first several turns to set up so that last third or fourth turn is powerful. And in that essence, it kind of reminds me of Colosseum, where only that one major score will win the game for you. World Conquerors is a game that works. If there's anything that's a disadvantage to it, maybe some of those Asian countries, if you get into them, they're very hard to take the other person out. And sometimes a person can draw a combo special power, which seems very difficult to overcome. But there are cards that let you do that, and the game is quick enough. Although
I said it's quick, and I play it quickly, but I can see how some people could bog down as they look at the cards in their hands. The expansion pack adds more people. I think it's fine. I will say for me personally, it is a little weird. I don't like playing with Jesus as a conqueror, because he wasn't, for one. And also, you know, the fact that he could die in this game as a result of conquest seems weird. One of the things I didn't mention, taking that aside, in the course of this game, is the fact that if you ever roll all 4s in combat, one of your leaders dies, and I think that's neat. I'm assuming it comes from the tradition that 4s are death in the Eastern cultures. But I really think that this expansion, I would pick it up just to add all these new leaders and add all these different people to see the different varieties and takes that they can add to the game. So if you like riskish style games, or maybe even you don't, but you look for like a conquering game that's quick and has a lot of things that you can add, this is certainly one that I would recommend. It's light, fast, short, has really cool cover artwork, and is not like pretty much anything else I played. World Conquerors.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Yeah?